We often hear people say, "I wish I had known. I wish I had more time to prepare." When it comes to our elderly loved ones, there's a delicate balance between accepting the natural progression of life and being caught off guard by a sudden decline. Many families assume their elderly relative will continue in a stable condition for years, only to be shocked when circumstances change rapidly. The truth is, our bodies often send signals when major changes are approaching. These aren't always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes they're quiet whispers that are easy to miss in the busyness of daily caregiving. Today, I want to share some important information that might help you navigate one of life's most challenging transitions. Recognizing these subtle signs doesn't mean giving up hope. Quite the opposite. It means being prepared to provide the right kind of support, have meaningful conversations, and make the most of precious time. Understanding these indicators can be transformative in several ways. First, it allows families to prioritize quality time and meaningful moments. When we recognize that time might be limited, we often make different choices about how to spend it. Second, it provides an opportunity to ensure your loved one's wishes are respected. Many elderly people have specific preferences about their care, but may not voice them unless prompted. Third, it gives everyone time to process emotions and prepare practically. The transition at the end of life is challenging enough without being caught unprepared. And finally, it helps caregivers and medical teams provide the most appropriate care, focusing on comfort rather than aggressive interventions when they may cause more distress than benefit. In the next few minutes, I'll walk through 5 key signs that medical professionals and experienced caregivers have identified as potential indicators that an elderly person may be entering their final year of life. Before we dive in, if you're finding this information helpful, type 123 in the comments below to let me know you're watching. And if you haven't subscribed yet, consider hitting that subscribe button to stay updated with more caregiving guidance. Now, let's get into these important signs. Sign 1. Progressive unintentional weight loss and appetite changes. One of the earliest and most telling signs that an elderly person may be approaching their final year is unintentional weight loss that continues despite efforts to prevent it. Medical research has shown that losing more than 10% of body weight over 6 months without trying is considered clinically significant. This occurs due to several physiological changes. As the body ages, metabolism naturally slows. However, in late-stage aging, the body begins to process nutrients differently. The digestive system becomes less efficient, appetite hormones change, and the body may actually begin to require less caloric intake. Sometimes, the body begins to conserve energy by reducing hunger signals. There's also often a decrease in the senses of taste and smell, making food less appealing. Medications can further impact appetite, and underlying conditions may accelerate metabolic changes. You might notice clothes becoming increasingly loose or the need to add extra holes to a belt. Your loved one may leave meals half-eaten, show diminished interest in favorite foods, or say they feel full after just a few bites. They might begin to skip meals entirely or seem to forget about eating. Sometimes there's also a shift in food preferences, particularly towards sweeter foods or softer textures. For family members, watching someone lose weight can trigger significant anxiety. It's often one of the most visible signs of decline and can feel like watching someone disappear before your eyes. For the elderly person, mealtimes that were once enjoyable may become sources of stress as they face pressure to eat when they simply don't feel hungry. Rather than focusing solely on caloric intake, shift toward quality nutrition in smaller portions. Consider offering nutrient-dense foods that deliver more value in smaller bites. Serve meals on smaller plates to make portions appear more manageable. Make mealtime social events when possible, as people often eat better in company. Consider consulting with a dietitian who specializes in geriatric nutrition for personalized recommendations. Most importantly, remember that force-feeding rarely works and can cause distress. Sometimes accepting smaller portions is an act of compassion. Focus on hydration, which remains crucial even when appetite declines. Document the weight loss and discuss it with healthcare providers, as it may influence treatment decisions for other conditions. Sign 2. Increased withdrawal and sleep pattern changes. Another significant indicator involves changes in social engagement and sleep patterns. You may notice your loved one gradually withdrawing from activities and relationships they once enjoyed, along with noticeable shifts in how and when they sleep. Neurologically, the brain undergoes changes that affect circadian rhythms and energy levels. The pineal gland, which regulates our sleep-wake cycle, often functions differently in late-stage aging. Additionally, as the body conserves energy, there's a natural tendency to reduce activities that require social and physical effort. Some researchers believe this gradual withdrawal may also be part of an intuitive psychological process, a natural turning inward that helps prepare for life's final transition. You might notice your loved one participating less in conversations or showing reduced interest in visitors. They may decline invitations they would have previously accepted or spend more time alone in their room. Their responses might become briefer, and they may seem less engaged with news or family updates. Sleep patterns often shift dramatically. They might sleep much more during the day, experience fragmented night sleep, or have periods of deep sleep from which they're difficult to rouse. Some elderly people also experience a phenomenon called sundowning, where they become more confused or agitated in the late afternoon and evening. For family members, this withdrawal can feel like premature grief, like losing someone while they're still physically present. It's common to feel hurt when efforts to engage seem unwelcome. For the elderly person, these changes are rarely conscious choices. Rather, they reflect changing energy levels and natural shifts in focus. Adjust your expectations for engagement rather than forcing interaction. Quality often matters more than quantity at this stage. Short, meaningful visits may be more valuable than lengthy ones that cause fatigue. Create a restful environment that accommodates changing sleep patterns. Rather than insisting on conventional sleep schedules, allow for rest when needed. Ensure the sleeping area is comfortable, at an appropriate temperature, and has adequate lighting for safety when awake. Continue to include your loved one in conversations and activities, but without pressure to participate. Sometimes simply being present while others interact can provide comfort. Remember that physical presence can be meaningful even when verbal engagement decreases. Monitor for signs of depression, which can mimic withdrawal but may benefit from treatment. Depression isn't a normal part of aging or end of life, and should be addressed with healthcare providers. If you're finding these insights helpful for understanding your loved one's journey, type 456 in the comments section. This helps me know which topics resonate most with our community. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to support more content like this. Now, let's continue with our next sign. Sign 3. Declining functional abilities in daily activities. A third significant indicator involves progressive changes in an elderly person's ability to perform daily activities independently. This typically follows a pattern, beginning with complex tasks and gradually extending to basic self-care. Physiologically, this decline results from multiple systems gradually losing efficiency. Muscle mass naturally decreases with age, a condition called sarcopenia, affecting strength and coordination. Neurological changes may impact balance and fine motor control. Cardiovascular efficiency can decrease, reducing stamina for everyday tasks. When these changes accelerate and become more pronounced, it often signals that the body's reserve capacity, its ability to bounce back from stressors, is diminishing significantly. The pattern typically begins with difficulty managing complex tasks like finances, driving, or using technology. It then progresses to challenges with instrumental activities of daily living, preparing meals, managing medications, or household chores. In later stages, basic activities of daily living become affected. Bathing, dressing, using the toilet, or transferring from bed to chair. You might notice increasing reliance on assistive devices or people, more frequent falls, or longer recovery times after physical exertion. A telling sign is when these changes occur despite stable medical conditions or after adequate treatment of acute problems. When function doesn't return to baseline after an illness or hospitalization, it often indicates diminishing physiological reserves. For the elderly person, losing independence can trigger profound grief, frustration, or even shame. Many struggle with accepting help, particularly with personal care. For family members, witnessing this loss of independence often creates sadness mixed with practical challenges of providing increased support. Focus on preserving dignity while providing necessary assistance. Find ways to offer help that maintain the person's sense of control, perhaps by giving choices within tasks rather than taking over completely. Modify the environment to support remaining abilities. Consider adaptive equipment recommended by occupational therapists that can extend independence. Prioritize safety while balancing quality of life considerations. Document changes in function and discuss them with healthcare providers, as they may influence treatment decisions. When significant functional decline occurs, it may be appropriate to discuss palliative care approaches that focus on comfort and quality of life rather than aggressive interventions. Most importantly, recognize that helping someone accept assistance is a process that requires patience. Acknowledge the emotions behind resistance rather than dismissing them. Sign 4. Recurrent infections or difficulty recovering from minor illnesses. The fourth indicator involves changes in how the elderly person's body responds to common illnesses or stressors. When minor health issues that once resolved easily begin to require longer recovery periods or more intensive interventions, it often signals decreasing physiological reserves. Immunosenescence, the aging of the immune system, leads to less effective responses to pathogens. The inflammatory response, crucial for fighting infection, becomes less efficient, while sometimes paradoxically increasing baseline inflammation. Organ systems that once had significant reserve capacity begin functioning with minimal reserves. The body becomes less able to maintain homeostasis, internal balance, when challenged by illness, medication changes, or environmental stressors. You might notice that common colds last longer or more frequently develop into bronchitis or pneumonia. Urinary tract infections may occur more frequently or become more serious. Minor cuts or wounds heal more slowly. Recovery from any acute illness takes progressively longer, and the person may not return to their previous baseline of function afterward. Hospitalizations might become more frequent, with each one resulting in a step down in overall function. Another telling sign is increasing difficulty managing chronic conditions that were previously stable. Blood pressure, blood sugar, or pain levels may become harder to control despite medication adjustments. For elderly individuals, this cycle of illness and incomplete recovery often creates fatigue and sometimes a sense of resignation. For caregivers and family, it triggers anxiety about each new symptom and difficult questions about when to seek medical intervention. First, ensure preventive measures are in place. Appropriate vaccinations, good hydration, proper nutrition, and infection control practices can reduce risks. Be vigilant about early signs of infection, which may present atypically in the elderly confusion or fatigue rather than fever, for example. Discuss with healthcare providers which symptoms warrant immediate attention versus watchful waiting. Consider having a clear advanced care plan that addresses preferences for hospitalization and interventions if conditions worsen. This may be the appropriate time to discuss whether palliative care approaches might provide better quality of life than repeated hospitalizations or aggressive treatments. These conversations are difficult, but ultimately allow for care aligned with the person's values. Remember that comfort care is active care. Managing symptoms effectively is vital whether pursuing curative treatment or not. Sign 5. Psychological shifts in awareness and acceptance. The final indicator is often the most subtle yet profound. Changes in how the elderly person speaks about or perceives their future. Many people develop an intuitive awareness of life's transitions, even when not explicitly told about their medical prognosis. While not fully understood scientifically, this awareness appears to be partly a natural psychological process. Some researchers believe we have intrinsic mechanisms that help prepare us for major life transitions. Clinically, many hospice workers and geriatricians report that patients often seem to know when they're entering life's final chapter, even sometimes predicting the timing with surprising accuracy. You might notice your loved one beginning to put affairs in order, organizing personal items, giving away meaningful possessions, or having conversations about what happens when I'm gone. Some begin to speak more reflectively about their life, sharing memories or expressing thoughts about legacy. Others may become more explicit, making statements like, "I won't be here next Christmas," or asking questions about end-of-life processes. Some show decreased interest in long-term planning or treatments with delayed benefits. There may be a shift toward focusing on immediate quality of life rather than future outcomes. Perhaps most notably, some experience periods of unusual clarity or energy after a period of decline, sometimes called terminal lucidity, often using this time to complete important conversations or expressions of love. For family members, these conversations can be deeply unsettling yet precious. There's often an impulse to deny or redirect such talk with false reassurance. For the elderly person, the ability to acknowledge their perceptions can bring relief, particularly when met with honest listening. The most valuable response is often simply to listen without contradicting or dismissing their perceptions. Create space for expression without forcing conversations. Simple prompts like, "Tell me more about what you're thinking," can open important dialogues. Use these moments as opportunities to ensure their wishes are known regarding care preferences, funeral arrangements, or legacy desires. If they haven't completed advance directives, this awareness may create readiness to do so. Be willing to engage in spiritual or existential conversations if the person expresses interest. Many find comfort in addressing questions of meaning and purpose as life nears its conclusion. Remember that awareness doesn't mean giving up hope. It's possible to acknowledge reality while still finding joy and meaning in present moments. In fact, this awareness often creates a precious window for expressing love and completing important relational work. As we've discussed these 5 signs: progressive weight loss, increasing withdrawal, functional decline, difficulty recovering from illness, and psychological awareness, it's important to remember that they typically appear gradually and in combination. No single sign definitely indicates that someone is in their final year, but the pattern of multiple changes often provides important insights. Recognizing these indicators isn't about surrendering hope, but about adapting our expectations and priorities. When we understand these natural transitions, we can shift from fighting against inevitable changes to focusing on meaningful support. Most importantly, this awareness gives us the precious gift of intentionality, the ability to make conscious choices about how remaining time is spent. If you're noticing these signs in someone you love, remember that this knowledge places you in a position to make this phase of life as comfortable, dignified, and meaningful as possible. That's an incredible gift, even amid the challenges. Thank you for staying with me through this important but difficult topic. If you found this information valuable, please consider liking this video and sharing it with others who might benefit. Your comments about your own experiences also help build a supportive community for everyone navigating this journey. Until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.